For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jason Hayes T, and I am the athletics curator for the Hargrett Rare Book and Manuscript Library. And certainly on behalf of the Hargrett Library, I would like to welcome you all to this discussion of the NCAA tournament and its rich and storied history here in Athens. As home to the archives of the University of Georgia, the Hargrett Library is committed to not only preserving the university's athletics heritage, but to making that heritage available to researchers, students, alumni, letter winners, fans, whoever would like to partake of that heritage. As part of this commitment, the archives of the University of Georgia Athletic Association are now fully inventoried. They're properly preserved and are in regular use by researchers and in instruction. To go along with that, we regularly stage exhibits and host events such as this to explore various aspects of UGA's rich athletics tradition. Last spring, we staged an exhibit honoring the life and career of the greatest bulldog of them all, Dan McGill. And I'd like to mention that Dan McGill's archives, which were generously donated to us by the McGill family after his passing in 2014, are now fully open to the public for research and study. This archive provides an invaluable look into Coach McGill's long and storied career, varied career as well as his work in developing the outstanding tennis programs that we have here at the university. We hope that over time, more materials relating to UGA's tennis history will come to us in Hargrett, and that the McGill archives will form the nucleus of what could become a very rich collection that will preserve the history of UGA tennis. I'm also pleased to mention that we have been working this past year with John Frierson at the ITA Men's Tennis Hall of Fame to revamp and refurbish some of the exhibits that are on display. This has been a wonderful opportunity for us in Hargrett to do some outreach and to get involved with the tennis community and at UGA and in Athens at large. And by working to make this really unique museum an attractive place for visitors of a new generation. So no one came here to hear me talk. I certainly didn't come here to talk. So I'd really like to get on with the program and introduce tonight's speakers. I'm very excited to introduce, we have three speakers tonight. Very excited to introduce them. We have Manuel Diaz, 2017 SEC Men's Tennis Coach of the Year. John Frierson, four-time UGA tennis letter winner, former assistant coach, and former NCAA tennis ball boy. And Jeff Wallace, who is leading his team to their 31st consecutive NCAA tournament. And our discussion tonight will be led by ITA Tennis Hall of Fame curator John Frierson, who is also a former NCAA tennis ball boy.
Thank you all so much for coming. We all got together, 15 months ago, something like that, for the Georgia tennis discussion, and I'm betting it's a fair amount of the same crowd. And Manny and Jeff were here for that, and had plenty to offer then, and I'm sure we'll have plenty to offer tonight, as will my brother Jack, who I'm thrilled could make it. And yeah, there's so much to talk about. It's the 45th anniversary of the very first NCAA tournament here. That was early or mid-June 1972, about 5 days after I was born, so I don't remember much of it. But Manny, you were here. You were a freshman at Georgia. Can you just sort of start us off by what was the tournament like, both from playing in it perspective and just as an event? Because, I mean, facilities were obviously very different back then as well.
Well, thanks, John, and good to be here, and hello, everybody. Yes, I was a mere freshman in the spring of '72. And to be honest with you, it was all eye-opening. I went through my freshman year, and it was an exciting time. We had a very good team. Danny Birchmore was our only senior in that team, and he was a tremendous player, and he was a great example for all of us young players. This has nothing to do with maybe the NCAA tournament, but he was a tremendous leader for us. We used to my room was in the corner in the back row of McWhorter Hall, and I would come out every morning for breakfast around a little bit before 7 o'clock in the morning, and we all of us freshmen could always kind of peek around the cement wall, and we could see court 1 way in the distance, and we could always see Danny Birchmore being fed balls by Fred Birchmore, because every morning he was out there just hitting balls and things like that. But I personally played number 6 my freshman year, and it was a great experience. Had a tremendous spring leading up to it, and honestly, I cannot remember thinking, we have the NCAAs here. I probably didn't even know what the NCAA tournament was until maybe after we got done with the SEC tournament, where I started, here. Well, now we have 4 weeks because we had, we were on the quarter system, and it went long. But from the SEC end of the SEC tournament to the NCAA, there were like 4 weeks, and Coach McGill got us to stay sharp by playing challenge matches. So even though only 4 players from each team qualified to the NCAA tournament, I was allowed the challenge number 5. And I won 2 out of 3, and then I challenged number 4, and I snuck that one out. And so I don't know how I was lucky enough to get into the NCAA championships by virtue of challenge matches. It's funny that the first thing I did when I became head coach was do away with challenge matches. But about 2 or 3 weeks, we kind of just stayed sharp by doing these important challenge matches, and I got an opportunity to play, but I honestly did not know a whole lot at the time. I just knew it was a big tournament, and I think I may have gone to the 4th round of the tournament. I think I'm correct. You'll have to check on that, but I think I won like 4 rounds, or I was in the 4th round, and I was still like in the round of 64. It was an enormous, just a huge tournament. I think it was 256, but we didn't have the team tournament then. It was all individual, and for each player that won 1 match, your team won 1 point. But as I kind of just grew a little bit older and came back, I realized the historical perspective of the whole thing, and Coach McGill was able to promote this tournament into just a phenomenal event. We had, for the first time ever, we had chairs on the court. Players, you just drink water out of a tennis ball can and keep going to the other side. But Coach McGill had chairs on each court for the players, had an umpire on every match for the first time ever. And the third thing, most important thing, he said, you cannot have any kind of fan interest without a scoreboard. So while you're looking at 6 scores, you need to know what's going on. And so that was another first for the tournament. Needless to say, his promotional genius, you've seen pictures out there of the grounds just packed with people. We had a hill, we had some makeshift grandstands, bleachers, I would call them. But people actually just lined up that hill and brought coolers and blankets, and it was a tremendous atmosphere. So it was a tremendous success. And just my last comment, I'll pass it on, is like the tournament was already committed for the next 4 years. So that was 72. My sophomore year, we played at Princeton. My junior year, we played at USC. And my senior year, we played at Corpus Christi. So those 3 years following Georgia, it was a 4-year contract with Georgia that first year. The next 3 years were committed, and the tournament didn't return until its first opportunity, which I think was 1976 or 7. 7.
And then it lasted 13 straight years here,
That's
right?
correct.
That's right. Jack, you started out as a ball boy. Do you remember when you first started? And obviously, you were such a McEnroe fan. and you were on the court when he won. Yeah, I don't know how much of that '78 tournament you were there for, but I know you were on the court when he won the singles title. I mean, what do you remember from those early years, ball boy? Because you were out there at 7, 8 years of age.
I was almost 8 years old, and I didn't know who John McEnroe was until he played the tournament. He had gotten to the semifinals of Wimbledon as a 17-year-old, as an amateur, the summer before, and then decided to go to Stanford University. And they were the top team in the country at the time, but I really didn't know who he was until I saw him play. And I'm a left-hander, and he wasn't. I always had a soft spot for other left-handers, and he was, to quote Coach McGill, a wizard with a racket in his hand and a temper and a foul mouth and a number of other things. But he captivated the tournament. The fans, the stadium was packed in that time, and what I recall learning about him as that process went on. I recall in 1977 when Georgia hosted for the first time. We were not ball boys. We were not quite 7 years old, and my dad was in charge of the ball boys, so he had us involved. We played a lot of tennis, and so we'd been around it. It may have been a gamble to allow a 7-year-old out there on the court. I don't think that would be done today. But I think we had good models. People knew what they were doing. My dad did training sessions, and so we attended those. And so I remember getting out of school in order to go ball boy for the rounds. The tournament would start on a Saturday and go the team event through Tuesday. I remember the Monday and Tuesday, we got out of St. Joseph's School to be able to go in ball boy. And my brother Joe was there with me, and it was electric. The whole tournament was. For us, as avid tennis players, my dad taught us to play. He taught others. We lived a 4 or 5 minute walk down the hill to go to it, and I'm sure we ran down there and ran back every time because we didn't want to miss any of it. It was like having a music festival for a college student to be able to go, and it lasted for the tournament lasted 10 days with the team event first, and then the singles and doubles taking place afterwards. But you'd have the teams come in and practice for 3 days beforehand. And so for us little ones going and watching all the best American tennis players, amateur tennis players there on court was a thrill. And it was such excitement. I'm tickled even thinking about it, and being able to come and see some of the photographs that are here from those days brings back, I think, great memories.
I think in addition to all of that is the fact that Coach McGill did one more thing that nobody else had done, and that was go around town, and the community became involved because every team had a host family. So I believe you guys, for many years, hosted UCLA.
We did.
And so, here you are at 8 or 10 or whatever it is, a little bit later on as well. These whole entire teams, let's say a party of 15, comes to your house, and you're doing a cookout or you're catering some food, and you develop all these relationships. I'm sure that had a lot to do with, how special you saw this event. No? Because you really looked up to these kids.
And we were told that we were hosting UCLA. We had no idea what UCLA meant or stood for. We even called them UCLA to start. But you had these good-looking California kids coming in. They were the top seed, too, so we knew they had the best team running at that time. They were the number 2. Stanford would have been the top seed to begin, and then UCLA the next years. But they were the best, and they treated us very nicely. They played tennis and basketball with us, and then they'd also bring their clothes for my mom to wash throughout the tournament. That got old, I think. She had a good heart about it. Yeah, it was great excitement.
I think Jeff might even have another perspective, because he played for Utah. Was it?
Yes.
And so one other thing Coach McGill did was assign each team with a sorority. Right?
What are you saying here?
He could speak to that. Before why he transferred to Georgia may not have anything to do with tennis.
Wow, good way to get started. Thank you all for coming out today. Before I go there, I got to ask this guy a question. You later became nicknamed Jack and Row. Was that when you were 8 years old, or was that did Coach McGill give you? When did you get the nickname Jack and Row?
It was probably after McEnroe turned pro because I would imitate him. I tried his service motion and his style. I probably even had a temper like him.
You had the headband too.
But McEnroe, for those of you who may not be familiar with him, he had a very particular service motion where he would turn sideways. It was unorthodox. You really didn't see people imitating it because it was so very different and a little counterintuitive. But when he played the NCAAs here, his service motion was quite conventional. It's as he was a pro in his early years that he turned more and more sideways. But I would try to imitate him when I played, and so I think it was after a couple of years where he was an established pro, and being able to watch him play on television, and if y'all can remember the early VCR recorders, you would. That they had, we would record some of his matches, and that way I could work on my imitation. And I ball boyed Jeff's match when Utah played Stanford. It was probably 8 or 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning to start the tournament, and he played Jimmy Gerfine.
Yes.
Yeah, court 2. I remember it.
Wow. That was a nice deflection, right? I should be a politician. I missed my call. Well, anyway, yes, I did play at the University of Utah for 2 years and came to Athens and played in the NCAA tournament. Amazing that you remember that. And Jimmy Gerfine was a lefty from Rochester, New York, who played at Stanford and actually got to the finals of the NCAAs, I think, the next year.
Yep.
He was a good player, and I'm sure he beat me pretty bad. But I'll tell you what, I really recognized there was something super special going on here in Athens at the University of Georgia with this NCAA tournament. And I was fortunate enough to play against Georgia up in Princeton at the national team indoors. And it was a great day for me because I won. I beat a great Georgia player, Paul Groth, but the University of Georgia beat the Utes, so that wasn't so bad either because I later became a Georgia Bulldog and played my junior and senior year here in Athens. But yeah, just I think for any player growing up, playing here in the NCAA tournament, whether you're from an away team or most special when you play for the University of Georgia, this experience is really just absolutely undescribable and absolutely amazing. And I remember in 1984, my senior year, where I was on the number 6 court too. He did it as a freshman. I did it as a senior. He was on the number 1 court his senior year. But anyway, we didn't make the tournament the year before, and to not make the Sweet 16 and to play in that NCAA tournament, that was a huge disappointment for us in 1983. And so we really rededicated ourselves in 84 and made a great run. We were actually in the quarterfinals playing Southern California. I'll never forget this match. Coach Diaz was on my court, and I was getting beat. I was playing Anthony Emerson, who was Roy Emerson's son. Fortunately, not the player that Roy was, but he was beating me that day, and I was down a set, and I was down 5-1, and I think Coach McGill dialed up the tennis gods, and the ceiling came out, and it poured down rain, and we had about an hour and a half delay. We continued outside, and I actually came back, if you remember, and won that match 7-5 and then 6-3 in the third set. And that's when we played doubles after. Now we played doubles before for 1 point, but that's when we played 2 out of 3 sets of doubles after 3 matches, each counting as a point. And it ended up raining again, and Alan Miller and Ola Monkus, our number 1 doubles team, it came down to their match, and they finished on court 2 indoors. And I'll never forget it because there was such a huge crowd there that day. Everybody filed indoors. The whole court, the stands were all full. Court 3 was full. Court 1 was full. They're playing on court 2. And, of course, coaches are out there on the court coaching them. And all the rest of us players are in this crowd trying to get through to where we can even see our team hopefully win this match so we could go on the next day. And it was amazing how many people were there. And they did prevail, and we won that match and ended up losing the next day to Stanford in the Final Four. But I really felt like that year was a just a prelude to the next year, 1985, when I got off the team. We brought in a great freshman, Trey Carter, and then went on to win the national championship. So that was a special time for us here in Athens.
And that year, we won our first NCAA individual championship
Correct.
of any kind,
Yeah.
which was Ola and Alan Miller winning the NCAA double that year.
That was huge.
Jack, I mean, I wanted to ask you, as somebody who grew up on those courts, and you were sort of the first one we knew that, rose through the ranks and was one of the top juniors in the country, and then to not only play for Georgia, but play for Georgia in the NCAA tournament, in front of your family, in front of the home crowd. You got to the finals, twice, I think, during your career? I mean, what was that experience like? Because, not many people get to live out their dreams, and, you did.
Well, it was emotional. I have fewer memories from that time period, though, because I had a job to do. I was not a spectator. I feel it. I remember nerves. I remember thrills, disappointments. Those still, particularly disappointments that I still wake up and feel sometimes, because it was such a big moment, and we had high expectations too. Jeff's team, and Jeff described that 84 team was the one that really established Georgia as a contender. And through the years, Georgia won 2 more championships before I played. So we had high expectations. I was a freshman, Coach Diaz's first year as a head coach, and we reached the finals. And I played doubles, number 3, with a very good partner. And we were established, but as a singles player, I was always competing with other guys on the team to make the lineup. I was a good college player, but I wasn't an All-American player. So it was always competitive for me, and I happened to get into the lineup for the NCAA tournament my freshman year, because we had a little tournament that helped us keep us tuned up. It was a remnant of the Coach McGill era, the Georgia State Championships, and I won a match in that one that gave me an opportunity to play number 6. And at that time, it was a dream come true to be able to play in front of the crowds, but particularly then, as opposed to now. Right now, this year, Georgia will host the NCAAs again, and when the teams play, they'll play doubles first, and then the singles will go. So they'll start on 3 courts, and then they'll expand to 6. At that time, when I played and when Jeff played, the tournament would run matches on 3 courts at a time. So you would have on the stadium courts, if you're familiar with the UGA Stadium, they have the upper 3 courts. And so a match would begin there with, it began with the 1, 2, 3 singles. Is that right?
They go 1, 3, 5, I think.
Yeah, I think it was
1, 3, 5
and 2, 4, 6.
Okay, so that would happen on that court, and then on the lower 3 courts, there would be another match going on, and then they have the 2 upper McWhorter courts where they would have the same thing, 3 matches going on, 3 singles matches for 1 match, and then the other. And so for us, for Georgia, you got to fill the entire stadium with Georgia fans, and this was when Georgia was on the quarter system. And so all the students were still in town, and the students and the faculty and everyone involved with the university was excited about this great event that Georgia got to host. The sororities had their team, so they would come out, and when sororities came out to watch, it meant fraternity boys came out to watch. And when Georgia was successful, it brought everybody out, and so it would pack, it would completely sell out, and then some. And so my freshman year, I got to play, and I was the deciding match going on when we were playing USC, which was a big matchup. They had maybe had a slightly down year, but they were always one of the contending teams. So I got to play in that. And I remember just playing on adrenaline, and I won in a 3-set match, and the roar of the crowd. And we advanced that year, and every match was competitive and hard fought. And as Jeff was describing, when matches went indoors because of rain, it actually made it more dramatic and exciting, because you took whatever matches were going on outside, you concentrated them indoors where you could hear the balls being struck even louder. There was an echo effect, and you took 3,000 plus fans and you concentrated it into probably 1,500 conceivable seats, and the roar of the crowd and all of it was pure adrenaline.
Jeff, for you, 1994 was the first year the women's tournament was here. You're coaching. You have one of your best teams ever. I don't know how you would rate it, but your first national title on your home court and a singles title. I mean, how do you describe that? I mean, because it was a perfect debut for the women's tournament here and a perfect way to win your first title.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's kind of a pre-story to it. That was back when the NCAA men's championship and the women's championship were separated. So they were two different locations. And now, obviously, we play together on the same location. But Coach McGill was at the NCAA office. I think something else we did a little bit different then was we would actually go to the NCAA office and place a bid to host the tournament. So Coach was up there, and he was trying to get the men's tournament here, and then it became apparent that the men's tournament was moving someplace else, and he said, well, we're going to put a bid in for the women's tournament. So he placed a bid for the women's tournament, and we got it. And he came back, and we were all thrilled, first time ever having the women's tournament here on our campus. And Coach came back, and he said, I got a great deal on this tournament. And I said, you did? Fantastic. I'm super excited. He goes, yeah, we've been paying about $60,000 to get the men's tournament here, and for this tournament, we only paid $20,000. And I didn't have the courage to tell him that the year before the University of Florida got it for $1. He just had no idea at the time that, anybody was just trying to get the women's tournament. That just, So then we get to the week of the tournament, and I think somebody told him, and I remember him coming up to me, and he goes, well, Jeff, your team better get to the finals. We're not going to have I can't really say that word, chance of paying this $20,000 gate. And so it wasn't like there was enough pressure on us already, but now we got to get to the final to make the gate. And it was a magical year. We had won the SEC regular season. We won the SEC tournament. We won the national team indoors that year. And so the NCAA tournament was the only one left. And we did have 2 losses in the regular season. So we were the 2nd or 3rd seed, I want to believe. And we ended up making it to the final. And we played Stanford, who we had lost to in 1987, the first time ever in the NCAA tournament out UCLA. Stanford beat us pretty bad, so this was the 2nd time playing them. And I'll never forget it, we had 3,117 people, the largest crowd to ever view a collegiate women's match, which made Coach McGill extremely happy. In fact, not only did we make the guarantee, we made enough money that he gave us money, so 2 years later I was able to take my team to Hawaii, which was unbelievable. So his great promoting certainly helped fill those stands. But we were playing Stanford, and they were pretty much beating us all day. We were down 3 matches to 2, and I remember Stacy Shepard on the number 2 court. Stacy's just from Loganville, just down the road. She was down 4-1 in the 3rd set to Kristen Kurth, and ended up coming back and winning that match, so it tied it up at 3-all going into the doubles. And my number 4 singles player, my number 1 doubles player, she was ranked number 1 in the nation, Michelle Anderson, was playing with Angela Tier, who later won the NCAA singles tournament. And during the singles match, Michelle got hurt really bad. I remember we had that little 10-minute break in between singles and doubles, and one of our team physicians was there, and she'd hurt her foot. And I had the whole team around, and I'm giving them this pep talk. We're getting out there, and everyone kind of starts looking this way. And here's our doctor, and Michelle's on her back, her foot's up in the air, and he's putting a needle in it, injecting it, numbing it up. And I just started talking. I said, that's what I'm talking about. See that? You got to be tough. Let's go. And they just looked at that. We all went out there. Michelle played. She played unbelievable, and we won at 1 doubles and ended up getting beat at 3 doubles. And it came down to the number 2 court where Stacy Shepard was also on that court. And we ended up winning that match. And I remember Frank Brennan, the Stanford coach who had won several NCAA titles, he got up to the microphone. He was very gracious, congratulating us, and said what a great crowd it was and what a knowledgeable tennis crowd it was, and how excited he was to be able to play, win or lose, in front of such a great, large crowd of that nature, because at the time, as I said, it was the largest crowd to ever view an NCAA tournament. So that night, we're all super excited, we're celebrating, and Angela comes up to me and she says, Jeff, you know, I did what I set out to do. We've won this NCAA singles tournament, and although I'm a top seed in the singles, I'd like to pull out. I'm tired, I just don't think I can go on. And I looked at her, I said, Angela, are you kidding me? You can win this tournament. And her doubles partner, they were ranked 1 in the country. She couldn't play. We knew it after she got that injection. Her week was over, and she didn't play in the doubles. And we possibly could have won the Triple Crown that year, but they ended up ranked number 1 even without playing in the NCAA tournament. That's how many wins and how good they were. But somehow during that night, I remember I talked Angela into playing. And I think she was glad she did after the week, because she ended up winning the NCAA singles tournament too. So thrill of a lifetime, amazing to host it the first time ever and to be able to win it. Thankful to Coach McGill for bringing that tournament here to Athens.
Well, I know for me, 1999 stands out. And part of that's because my brother was the assistant coach for Manny, but just that tournament was maybe one of the most entertaining and dramatic for Georgia. I mean, in terms of, coming back from, maybe match points down in multiple matches. There was, I think, Baylor in the quarterfinals that went on till like 2 a.m, and there were still, 100, 200 of us, including Vince Dooley there watching. And Manny, for you, and Jack, you can address this as well, but I mean, what stands out for that year? Because that was your first title as well as head coach.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just seemed like it was a different one because of the drama attached to it.
There was a lot of drama, and I guess in 1999 we probably had on paper our worst team up to that point of my head coaching career. That was about 10 years or so. We had reached the finals 5 times, and we had lost all 5 to honestly better teams. It's not like we kind of dropped the ball or anything.
We were seated 10th, and we should have been.
That was that was on paper the least capable team on paper to win a national championship, wouldn't you say? But we had a group of just bulldogs, and they kind of came together. I remember in the second round of our regional. We're having our regional not this weekend, but the following weekend. In our second match there, we played Washington, a good Washington team, and we were down team match point. So down our number 1 singles player was down 15-40. The guy was serving for the match, and Hisham Hamida just hit a screaming backhand return winner. And on the next point, Kendrick comes in and really has him on the dead stretch, and Hisham hits a winner and comes around and wins that match. And in a celebration, we kind of just advanced at a round of 16s. And, I could honestly, I saw them just doing the dog pile, kind of just jumping up and down, and I swear to goodness, I went like, this is going to be it. I just saw it come for some reason. Weren't we were down team match points against Baylor, I believe?
I don't recall us being, it came down to 1 match against them.
Well, it was number 5, and the guy actually broke his ankle. we were down a set, and maybe even a break in the second at number 5 singles. Duke player actually rolled his ankle really bad. I think it wound up. But I think we had another match where we down team match point as well.
Yeah, and I recall that we beat Washington in that regional match, which was just electric. It was a beautiful Sunday in May, and it played to the lights came on, and we had our team was solid and good, and there wasn't another team in the country that purely dominated that year. The year before, we had a great team, but we had to play an undefeated Stanford team in the finals, and they were superb. They had the belly bumping Bryan brothers playing 1 and 2 for them, and they had other All-Americans through the lineup. It was one of the best teams that I ever saw come through Athens. And the next year, the Bryan brothers had turned pro, and it gave other teams, I think, a hope. But it also meant that there were a lot of contenders, and Washington had a very good older team. We had a relatively young team, and so we were able to advance that one. It was really just take one match at a time. We beat Texas in the round of 16 match fairly handily. We had a tough one with them before earlier in the season, and then we played Baylor, who we didn't know much about. It was their first emergence, but they had. We won the doubles point against them. It was a match where it was rain delayed numerous times through the day on a Sunday, and it wound up being that by the time they drive the courts, it was 10 o'clock at night, and we came out and won the doubles, which was very pivotal. You played 3 doubles matches, and the winner of 2 of those doubles matches earns the doubles point, and then you play 6 singles matches. And so if it splits 3-3 in singles, then the team that won the doubles point won. And what it forces is the team that lost the doubles point to have to win 4 of the 6. And that's a tough task. And I remember we came in the singles, and again, we didn't know much about them. But when they came out, I was coaching on 4, 5, and 6, and it looked like they had 3 pro players out there. And they were killing us, and I knew we were we were doing well on 1 or 2 courts upstairs, but we were outmatched at all 3 courts down below, and somehow we maybe had another rain delay, but it did occur that at 1 in the morning, this player at number 5, he hurt his ankle. To our player's credit, Adam Serra, he was a tremendous athlete. He found a way to stay in there. His best asset was his serve, and everything else he did was sort of schoolyard basketball style. But with his serve, he found a way, and then when the guy broke his ankle, we were able to win the 3rd set in that one 6-1. And it was a great moment for us because a lot of folks stayed when it was 2 in the morning. I remember looking up and seeing our athletic director, Vince Dooley, up among those who had actually stayed. And it was Monday morning by that point, and folks had to be at work or at classes, but they were still there.
It was a young crowd too. We had a lot of students there, and every time we had a rain delay, they would go to Steve Areno's and lube up. So it was a vociferous crowd.
And I think we were. Well, I don't think we were yet on the semester system at that point.
Probably not.
But if we were, it was still a big deal for students to come back and watch, and that was a big part of the NCAAs for college students was being able to drink and then go watch Georgia play, and seeing tennis, which in its first impression as a country club sport, but it was a different setting when you saw the NCAAs, and it still is. It brings a lot of that energy of what you see in the college basketball, the March Madness element. It comes to the tennis courts. And
Jeff made a comment that Coach Brennan at Stanford said, he's very impressed with the knowledgeable crowd. We were on the men's side never told we had a knowledgeable crowd.
That's right.
They were not minding their P's and Q's.
In the last week, though, I've spoken to both legendary Stanford coach Dick Gould and now legendary USC coach Peter Smith, and Smith talking about coming back here this year, and that they both sort of unsolicited brought up just how special the tournament was here, that it was an event here versus just, often kind of just a semi-bland tournament elsewhere. I mean, in your experience, Jeff and Manny, in your experience playing it here versus elsewhere, what was different, beyond just like facilities and things like that?
There's just an atmosphere here for some reason. I honestly think that we have not only our community that really backs the tournament, and now we have less of the students because the school is gone for the most part. But then the city of Atlanta evolved as a huge hub for team tennis, and everybody plays tennis in Atlanta. And so Alta is the largest league in the United States. There's so many tennis players. So now we're drawing more from outside of Athens. So not only from Atlanta, but I think a lot of college fans from all over the place follow their teams into Athens because they know of the atmosphere. Great atmosphere, and the fact that this is an event here rather than just a tournament. And I think part of that legacy continues on from what Coach McGill started and how he got so many folks involved, and it's just something special in the air when it comes to NCAA tournament, that not just Georgia fans, not just Athens folks, not just UGA students, people come from all over the place. People follow, more Illinois fans come over here than they probably would, to UCLA or USC or Tulsa or whatever. Athens is such a phenomenal community and in a place where I think people just really enjoy coming to Athens and watching the NCAA tournament.
I think that Coach probably just said it all there, but maybe just add a little bit to that. I certainly hear from my fellow coaches and players on other teams through the years that they love coming to Athens, just the downtown and where they stay in the hotels and be able to walk to the restaurants and the nightlife and just everything about Athens, the city. They really, really like that. The proximity to the courts, and then when you get to the courts, I feel like our facility is such a welcoming and user-friendly and viewing perfect court facility setup. And so I really feel like, just to add a few more things, I think those are some of the things that I certainly hear people talk about.
Yeah. Well, sort of the elephant in the room, and one of the popular topics in town in tennis circles is, the tournament's here this year, and then it's not coming back for a while. I mean, I guess your reactions to that, and what needs to transpire maybe to make sure that Athens remains, and every other year, every 3 years or whatever, just that Athens remains a central part of the NCAA tennis tournament.
We went through that period where the NCAA committee was under tremendous pressure to move the tournament around. The USC coach for a while there, got tired of us beating him here, and then so a lot of complaints that Georgia all of a sudden became a major player, so therefore had a home court advantage, which was legit.
And a recruiting advantage.
Yeah, and a recruiting advantage. So, the tournament was moved, and I remember he actually hosted the NCAA tournament the first time it went away after 13 years. I think it was 94 to Palm Springs.
I can tell you, I can look at
90?
Mm-hmm. In 90 it was in Indian Wells.
They hosted that. So he put together all this money, and they asked him to do it again. I said, no, not in the world. I'll never do that again. So, and then the tournament in 97 went back to UCLA. And I remember he was still coaching. He's retired since, a good friend of mine. And I remember him coming to me after the finals and said, we tried the tournament, at Palm Springs. We hosted it. And UCLA has said, you know what? You guys need to host it. You did the best job of all. And so I felt somewhat redeemed. But, getting back to your question, we lose the tournament. I remember Coach McGill very graciously saying, the NCAA needs to know that we'll be glad to host it whenever they want us to host it. And we'll remain ready, and we'll continue to build our facilities. A lot of athletic programs have enhanced tennis facilities now. We used to be one of a handful that had tremendous tennis facilities. Now, just about everybody has a great tennis facility because athletic departments are now involved in, not just one sport, not football, not just basketball, but they want to have a great overall athletic program. So there's a lot of tennis facilities that are very, very good, a lot of new ones, and some of those have been rewarded with the tournament. We'll continue to improve our facilities. I think we're soon to have a new 6 indoor court complex. It's going to happen. And, we even on the docket have a new grandstand. Our grandstand was built in 1980. It's still wooden and maybe a little bit rickety, and maybe the fire marshal is going to shut us down soon. I mean, it's got to be done at some point. We haven't lost hope. We're going to continue to be in the hunt for the tournament. The USTA invested hundreds of millions of dollars coming up with a national training center that has 102 tennis courts, including 6 new indoor courts. They have red clay, green clay, grass. They have hard court. And so the USTA made a big push for this tournament, and the NCAA committee decided to award that site with 2 of the 4 years they just awarded. So we'll come back and we'll put a bid in, and we'll continue to improve our facilities, I'm sure.
Anything to add? Or?
Not much to add to that.
Sorry.
That was good. No, really good. I think we all just need to take a deep breath and realize that we're in a little bit of a different era. And as you said, with the USTA, we knew that was coming and that they were going to get it 1 or 2 years moving forward. But I think that if we just continue to, create the mecca of college tennis is the Dan McGill Tennis Facility, and we just need to keep making the improvements there that need to be made. And I think we'll see this thing come back real soon. And quite frankly, I think it's going to make it more special than ever, because we won't have it now for a 5 or so year period. So I think we need to remain positive and remain committed and make some great upgrades. And I think we'll see it back here and be more exciting than ever.
Well, I thought in the last 10 minutes or so, if anybody has a question, I got a handheld mic here that I might be able to turn on. No? Anything? But we could probably, this is an intimate enough group that if anybody's got a question for the panel, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer. Can
the panel ask a question to the audience?
You are welcome to. I think I know your question.
I've got a question. We've got a gentleman here Joe Frierson, who was officiating a legendary match with John McEnroe back in 1977, I want to say.
78.
Or was it 78? 78. And there's a movie that I would highly recommend that everybody watch. It's the John McEnroe story. It's called The Rites of Passage. And I believe you can get it on YouTube. But there's some great footage in there of John, who was in the umpire's chair, umpiring this match. And he had to actually get out of his chair and go settle down a fan, I believe, on court 1 there. And I've never heard him tell this story. So I'd love to hear him tell the story if he's willing to do it. I don't mean to put him on the spot.
I don't know how much of it exactly I remember, but it had been a controversial match. Anytime Mac played, he was playing, this was in the team competition, I think.
Yeah. Put the mic to your mouth.
With Eric Kaskursky of Trinity. And so they'd been back and forth, and there'd been a few close calls, and Mac had thrown his racket a time or two and yelled a few obscenities, fortunately none in my direction. And all of a sudden, there was a fan on the front row, and I'm perusing the crowd to make sure there are no relatives of this person here who maybe had also been to Steve Aruno's for a little warm-up for the match. And he started heckling McEnroe. And this man was, I'm going to guess, 70 or so at the time. And he and his wife were sitting there in their normal seats, and he was really heckling him. And finally, I told him to be quiet. And he stood up and said, you can't tell me to be quiet. And so I got out of the chair and went down there and said, I don't want to embarrass you, but we're going to have you removed from the stands here. McEnroe, I think, was applauding at that point. But Eric Kaskursky blamed me in the press for interrupting the match, which perhaps it did, but this fellow was definitely a disruptor himself. And he did get up and leave, and I'm not sure if he ever came back. But that was what happened that day.
He was not part of the knowledgeable crowd.
The only other thing I'd like to say is in 1972, I got a phone call about 10 days before the tournament started. And if you remember, Coach McGill had put up that big yellow sign going. And at that time, it was up above court 1, down on that little plateau. And he said, I wonder if Ann would let you come down and talk some tennis, which always meant that I would go down there to listen to him. And I said, Coach, what particularly do you want to talk about? He said, well, we want to get the scoreboard ready for the professional sign painters who are coming in tomorrow. And I said, well, if I could ask the question, if they're professional sign painters, why do we have to get it ready? He says, well, they may not know how to do it.
Anybody else with a question? Joe, my brother, you're the only Frierson in the room that hasn't spoken into a microphone yet. You got anything to say?
No.
I just would say, talking about how special it was in Athens, growing up here, I went to school in Chapel Hill. We had good teams, but only the top 16 came. In my first 3 years, we didn't make it. My senior year, we did. So I did get to come here and play, which was fantastic. And the next, or 2 years later, it went to Notre Dame in '94. And so that was my first experience seeing it at another venue. And Notre Dame's a wonderful campus, and it was one of the worst tournaments. I mean, they had some Big Ten, I remember, and they had no atmosphere, no crowd, but they had this huge tent where they gave goodie bags to all the players. And I just remember seeing Coach McGill, who, you know, he was competitive and he didn't want to like it so much. And I just remember him saying, you just can't have a tournament where all they have is goodie bags. All I see is goodie bags. So Athens is where it should be regularly. So I hope you get your upgrade.
I remember that tournament. We played Notre Dame, the host school, the round of 16. So the first round there in the final site. So Georgia goes on the road for the first time in God knows how long. We played them, and they had about 1,500 fans for our match. It was electric. They even had that little midget. What do you call that guy? Their mascot.
Rudy. Leprechaun.
No, the leprechaun.
They should have brought Rudy out.
What? But they had this leprechaun almost on the court. So annoying. I mean, talking to the guys and stuff. But anyway, it was great. And so we beat them in a close match. And after that, there wasn't 5 people in the grandstands the rest of the tournament. So the campus was pretty then.
Well, I'll wrap up. I want to wrap up and talk about 2007. Undefeated season. John Isner's a senior. None of us thought he would go on to do what he's done, I don't think. You may have, but you know better than anybody. I mean, what was that year like between going undefeated and winning it here and sort of John sort of fulfilling, one of the great careers Georgia ever had?
We can't talk about that 2007 phenomenal year. I mean, undefeated from door to door, from beginning to end there, without really putting in perspective, what happened the previous year. In 2006, we had a tremendous team. We went undefeated. We were 34-0, I believe it was. Couldn't have been, but maybe. Anyway, we were undefeated. We won the national indoors. We won the SEC regular season. We won the SEC tournament, and we go all the way to the finals in 2006, and we lose to Pepperdine in the finals. We lost one of our key players, Strahinja Bobusic. He tore some ligaments in his wrist, and he was just a very reliable number 6 singles player and 2 doubles team. But we still got through the quarters and semis. We did that without him, and then in the finals, Pepperdine played well. We just couldn't get it done and lost to him, and it was such a tough loss. I believe we disbanded that year. After that tournament, I don't think there was a whole lot of communication. I think each and every one of us kind of just went and became a hermit for about 2-3 months. Very tough because certainly was a goal of ours, and we knew it was on our racket, and we just couldn't put it together. But we showed up that fall, and the complete I would say, total focus and dedication that we had on every single practice. That team was on a mission to avenge that trip. We got tripped up, and we did the same thing. So I think in about 2 years we must have gone like 76-1, and went door to door. We just won the national indoors, won the regular season SEC. We won the tournament, and there was a lot of pressure in the finals because we played a team in Illinois that had upset, I forgot who it was, in the other semis. And they were like playing on just complete, total inspiration. And they were tough, but our guys kind of just won. So it was, in a way, a 50% relief when we won in 2007, and 50%, it was just total exhilaration.
Illinois beat Baylor.
Baylor, and they had a great team.
Y'all beat Virginia in the semis 4.
Yes. And Virginia basically attempted to have our semifinals with them played at McWhorter because the first match on the stadium was running late. And I went over my dead body. So we finally, it wasn't, the NCAA committee almost was ready to go okay, this match needs to, they have a point. And I think we were an hour late, but I'm going you have 3,000 to 4,000 people. Where are you going to put them over there? We've sold tickets, and anyway, we prevailed and we played at Henry Field. But I remember that was kind of an uncomfortable moment there. Are we going to go first time ever play at McWhorter for the NCAA tournament?
As the tournament director, you had a
Yeah.
little bit of a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I did.
On the surface.
Yeah, but that was a great. It was good to see John Isner go out on top and we had a tremendous Luis Flores and Travis Helgeson and on and on.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for coming, and thank you all so much for coming. I hope it's been interesting. If you haven't had a chance to check out the exhibit that Jason and I worked so hard on, it's a nice trip down memory lane, probably for a lot of you. And the tournament starts, the 19th? 18th? The 18th.
Well, the tournament starts regionals. Let's not get cocky.
Yeah, exactly. We got work to do.
I'll also remind you that on the 25th, we are inducting this year's class of the Hall of Fame, which includes Georgia's Matthias Boker, who was the last player to win the Triple Crown, and James Blake is going in, and Nick Bollettieri is going in. And that's the 25th, and that will be at the Georgia Center, and should be a very entertaining evening as well. So thank you so much for coming.
Hope you come.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.